This book, My Sister and I, usually regarded as a forgery. However, there is an author, Walter Stewart, who has written a series of books claiming that the book My Sister and I is actually a real book. What is the genesis of My Sister and I? It is known to be a fact that when Nietzsche collapsed in early January 1889, he ended up in the Jena asylum. He was there for about a year. After a year and 2 months, he was returned to the care of his mother. This picture, this famous picture of Nietzsche and his mother, was taken at that point when he was returned in about March 1890 to his mother. So you can see that he is still looking robust. He's certainly looking slightly zombie-like, but it's still the Nietzsche we know. And it is reliably said that he did do some writings while in the asylum in Jena. And of course, after his collapse, shortly after his collapse, when he was still living in Turin, he wrote some letters which have survived. We call them the letters of madness. So therefore, it is possible that he did write in Jena. There are indications and reports from witnesses that he did write while there. It seems those writings are lost. So the premise of this book, My Sister and I, is that those writings were found, translated into English, and the originals lost. What is a forgery about this book is that the preface and indeed the translation is by Oscar Levy. This has been largely disproved by Levy's own family. However, it still doesn't suggest that the book itself is a complete forgery. And the work of Walter Stewart gives a definite argument against it being an absolute forgery. So the best proof of the pudding is in the eating, isn't it? So if we read some from the book, and we start at the beginning. So this is the actual text of My Sister and I, and it begins chapter 1, section 1. It's in sections just like Nietzsche's own works are, although the sections do not go all the way through. The section numbers are only particular to the chapters. Chapter 1. I had a dream last night, or should I say a nightmare. A nightmare is something which rises out of the subconscious into the conscious, loaded with shock and unpleasantness to punish or frighten us. But what happened to me last night was a presentiment frenzied with happiness. If I think of it as a nightmare, it is because, unlike ordinary dreams which rise and fall in shadow, this one was deep and clear, and still remains with me instead of fading away. It appeared to me that the last citadel of the enemy had fallen. The old woman, whom I have hated more and more intensely every day since childhood, was dead. With my own eyes, I saw her locked in a wooden box, dropped into a hole in the ground covered with lime. I was at the cemetery with a group of dark, wailing people, none of whose faces, except that of Elizabeth, half embraced at my side, I saw clearly. Did it stem from the malevolent visit they paid me yesterday afternoon? The dream went on from the cemetery into a carriage which brought my sister and me home. Where that could be, I could only wonder. In a long, clattery ride, not a word passed between us. We sat huddled into each other and let the empty, bitter, futile years, marred for us by that tyrannous presence, melt down to their chemical elements. I felt the way the earth must feel when winter's ice gives way for the new crop of flora and vegetation. My heart ached with anticipation. The same warmth must have welled up in Elizabeth too. I surmised this, as we always do in dreams, in an emotional tide. Not as clearly directed as in life, but nonetheless real. Once, when I stole a surreptitious look at her cold, handsome face, I caught a faint smile in the corner of her mouth, which mounted swiftly to her wonderful, luminous eyes. But for the presence of the driver, masked like the people in the funeral, I might have tried to kiss her. If a thought can be conveyed from one person to another in associated words conceived but not uttered, this was my first communication to Elizabeth upon re-entering this dream house. So strangely familiar to me as it sits in my recollection. There are 3 empty beds in this house, and 2 of them shall remain unslept in for as long as I am able to influence you. This thought would never occur to Elizabeth herself. Suggested to her, it would most certainly be reacted to violently and unfavourably. My sister's world is one of scattered sunlight and shadows. The sunlight of her true passions and the shadows of the false ideas with which the world has bewitched her. Under no circumstances can she be expected to function as definitely and as imperiously as I do. But the seed of the thought can be planted in her mind. With a sick brother so badly in need of kindness and sympathy, who can tell what will happen? By all that has passed between us in our childhood years, directly and indirectly later, she is neither my sister nor any of the other things, such as adviser and helper, which she would like me and the world to believe her to be. For me, Elizabeth is primarily a woman, the warm, sunny harbour toward which my whole life gravitates. So that's the first section. It seems to present from the start a kind of lurid atmosphere of incestuous desires. But of course, there is something in that Elizabeth and Nietzsche, Friedrich, were unusually close as siblings, driven together by the passing of their father. When Nietzsche was 4 and his sister was only 2. I can't really say that passage reminds me of Nietzsche's writing. But then, if Nietzsche at that point had lost his mind and was in an asylum, as he was supposed to be then, perhaps those are the kind of utterances that such a person would make. So I will leave it there for that section and go further into the book at a later date.